Hello everyone and welcome to the class of Computer Network System, and we start with our first chapter this week. So the first chapter is Computer Networks and the Internet. Now the first chapter actually presents a broad overview of computer networking and the Internet. The main aim of this chapter is to paint a broad picture and set the context for rest of this book, and we will see the forest through the trees. We will cover a lot of ground in this introductory chapter, and we will discuss a lot of pieces related to the computer network without losing the insight to the big picture. So let's start with this chapter 1. Alright, moving ahead. The resource that we will be following will be the Kuros and Ross book, Computer Networking, a top-down approach. But in order to have more clarity, you can also use this book, Data Communication and Networking, as a reference book. The language by Frozen. The language of this Frozen book is quite easier than the Kuros and Ross book. So you can, if something is not understandable or you find something is quite complex or very difficult, you can always refer to this reference book, which is available in the library as well, and even it is available online also. Alright, so moving ahead. So this is the roadmap of this chapter. So what are we going to talk about? So in this chapter we are going to talk about, first of all, some basic terminology and the concept like basic hardware and the software that make up a network. Then we will start with the network edge, look at the end systems, network applications. We will explore core of the computer networks, examine the link switches and the physical media that connect to this network. After this, we will talk about various quality parameters, which is delay, loss, throughput in the network, and in the end we will talk about protocol layers and the service model. So let's start with our first topic in the roadmap, what is Internet. Everyone is familiar with what is Internet. Network or Internet is so popular, everyone is familiar with this. And all the businesses, even nowadays education, rely on the computer network and the internetwork. Communities in the world are not isolated anymore. Internetworking is now so popular that it has brought the world together, and any type of information is available at your fingertips. So what is a network? Before going towards internetwork, let's first of all understand what is a network. Network means connecting something. So in English language, networking means you are connected to some person, your social networking. So networking always means you are connected to something. So in terms of in terms of the computer science, network means interconnection of the devices. So a network is a set of devices. Now this is the more technical definition. Network actually means connecting the devices, connection of the devices. So a network is a set of the devices. Now these devices are called as nodes. Devices are called as nodes. They are connected by communication link. So network is the interconnection of the devices through some communication link. Now these communication link, it can be either wired or it can be either wireless, which we will learn later on. So what can be a node now? We say here a network is a set of devices which is often referred to as nodes. So what type of devices or what type of device can be a node? A node can be a computer, it can be a printer, it can be a smartphone, it can be your refrigerator, smart refrigerator, it can be your smart toaster, or any other device which is capable of sending and receiving the data generated by other nodes on the network. So any device which is able to send or receive data generated by the other devices on the network, that can be a node. One of the most specific and public networks is the internet. Everyone is familiar with the internet. So internet is a type of the public network. So internet is basically network of networks. So it connects the smaller network together, which forms a bigger network, which is called as the internet. Now, what is internet? Now, in this chapter, the internet will be described in two ways. Internet nuts and bolts, and in terms of the networking infrastructure. So internet nuts and bolts. So how we are going to describe internet in terms of nuts and bolt description. In this part, we will describe the hardware and the software that make up the internet. So what type of hardware devices, what type of software devices make up the internet? So nuts and bolts terminology means most basic, fundamental, and something which is always required or essential. Then we will talk about internet in terms of the networking infrastructure. So basically it provides services to the distributed applications or the applications which are running on the internet. Alright, so let's first of all talk about the nuts and bolts description. Alright, so an internet is a computer network that interconnects hundreds of millions of computing devices throughout the network. And not too long, the computing devices, before the computing devices, the traditional devices were connected to the internet. So these computing devices were very traditional devices like desktop, PC, Linux workstation and servers that could store and transmit the information such as web pages and email messages. After that, non-traditional internet end systems, non-traditional devices. Can anyone think of that I would have a smart TV before? If you go back to 10-15 years before, have you ever thought that even I could connect to the internet through my TV, or I could connect to the internet through my refrigerator, or my toaster coffee maker machine can send me the message, I can communicate to the coffee maker machine? Of course no. So now non-traditional internet end systems such as TV, laptop, gaming consoles, cell phones, webcams, automobiles, environmental sensing devices, picture frames, home electrical and security systems are being connected to the internet. So now the computer network is beginning to sound a bit dated, given that too many non-traditional devices are being hooked up to the internet. So in internet, all these devices, these are the computing devices or the nodes, these are called as hosts or the end systems. The internet is considered as the network of the network. So it is basically a network of the networks. I have a network, I have a network, I have a network. So internet is combining all these networks together. So network of networks is called as the internet. So this is an example of here you can see some pictures which can be connected to the internet, some cool internet appliances, picture frame, web enabled toaster, here we have the web server, then internet phone. So these are some internet appliances. Okay, going ahead. Now end systems are also called as hosts. Hosts are also called as nodes. So host, nodes, end systems, they are one and the same thing. They are basically the devices which can send or transmit the data. Now how end systems are connected? End systems are connected together by the help of the communication link and the packet switches. Now what are packet switches? We will talk about them later on. The most common type or the most common example of the packet switch is the routers and the link layer switches. We will talk about these devices also. Router is an hardware device. Link layer switch is also a hardware device which is used to connect the devices on the network. We will use the link layer switch in our lab also for doing the practical. Now, link layer switches, what is the purpose? They are used in access networks, whereas routers are used in the network core. Basically, routers and link layer switches, their purpose is the same. They are connecting the devices, but they are used at a different level of the network core. So where they are used and how they function, we will talk about them in detail later in the coming chapters. Now, the data which needs to be sent is segmented into packets. Very important point to note. For example, when you write an email or you send a message to someone using the internet, now that long message is split up, or it is choked down into the same size of packets. So data to be sent is fragmented into the packets, and then these individual packets, for example, you have a long message. Now this long message is broken down into 4 packets. So packet 1, packet 2, packet 3, packet 4. Now this long message will be sent as in 4 packets, packet 1, packet 2, packet 3 and packet 4 through the network. But when this message arrives at the destination system, there all these packets will be reassembled together. Now, who does this reassembling? Whose task is to do the reassembling? We will learn later on. So data which we send on the network or on the internet is always sent in the packets. Our message is broken down into packets. Who breaks our data into the packets? We will learn later on. Network route or network path. Now, for example, I want to send data from system A to system B. For example, this is system A and this is system B. There can be many paths to reach from system A to system B. So, which path to be taken? So, network route or network path is the sequence of communication link and the packet switches. In between, there may be switches, there may be routers, many routers and many switches, which will be traversed by the packet from sending end system to the destination. So, this is called as the network route. Network route is the sequence of the communication link. How many communication link a packet has to traverse? For example, in our daily life, while you are coming from your home to the college, you may have to come through different areas or different colonies. So this is, we call it as a path. What is the path you take? So the many colonies or the many areas that you traverse through is called as the path. Same thing happens with the packet in the internet also. Now, different links. Let's talk about communication link. We can have wired link and the wireless link or the wireless link. We will talk about both of these links in detail later on. So different links can be used to send the data at different transmission rate. Very important point to note over here, that links have different transmission rate. Transmission rate is how much amount of data can be sent in per second. So wireless transmission rates are usually lower than the wired transmission rates. So each link, for example, fiber optic cable has the higher transmission rate as compared to the copper cable or the twisted pair cable or the coaxial cable. So transmission rate is measured in bits per second. We call it as the BPS. The lower unit is the BPS, then you have higher units kbps, kilobits per second, then mbps, megabits per second, and then gbps, gigabits per second. Then wired links such as the coaxial cable, copper cables and fiber optic cables can be used, and wireless link is the radio spectrum which can be used. Now let's talk about the internet service providers. What are internet service providers? So, end systems can access the internet through internet service providers. So, what is an internet service provider and what is the job of the internet service provider? So internet service provider, including the residential internet service providers such as your local cable or the telephone companies. So whenever you want to access to the internet or you want to buy the internet connection, you always get it through your internet service provider like Mobily, like Zain, like all these are the internet service providers. So these are the residential ISPs which provide the connection in the residential areas. Then you may have the corporate internet service providers which provide the internet to the big companies. Or the companies are normally the same. University ISPs which provide internet, which are the internet service providers for the university, and the ISPs that provide Wi-Fi access on the airport, hotels, nowadays in the park, in the public areas. So all these are the internet service providers that provide access to the internet at the various locations. Each ISP is in itself a network of packet switches and communication. Internet service providers, they provide a variety of network access to the end system, which can be a residential broadband access such as the cable modem, which is a DSL line, digital subscriber line, high-speed local area network access, wireless network access. Internet service providers, they also provide internet access to the content providers which connect websites directly to the internet. So internet is all about connecting the end system to each other so that internet service providers can provide access to the end systems. It must also be connected. Alright, before we go ahead, now we have a hierarchy of the internet service provider. So we have the hierarchy of the internet service provider. We have the low tier internet service providers that can be connected to the national and international upper tier internet service providers. So we have like upper tier internet service provider, then we have lower tier, and then below it. So all these are interconnected to each other. We will talk about more in coming slides. Now let's talk about protocols. What are protocols? Protocols are actually rules. Alright, so protocols are actually rules. Just like when we are communicating, human beings are communicating or conversing with each other, there are certain rules. Like we first of all, when we are talking to a person, we first of all greet the person, hi, hello. Then we start with our conversation, and at the end we terminate our conversation like saying a goodbye or whatever. Same thing, there are certain rules which must be followed when we are doing a conversation on the internet. So end systems, packet switches, other pieces of the internet, they need to follow the protocols. They need to run the protocols that control the sending and receiving of the message within the internet. So the TCP and the IP are the two most important protocols. Although we have many other protocols also, but TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol, and IP stands for Internet Protocol. These are the two most important internet protocols or computer protocols. Let's talk about now internet standards. What are internet standards? Given the importance of the protocols to the internet, it is important that everyone agree on what each and every protocol does. So basically the purpose of the protocol is how to send the data, where to send the data, and who will send the data. So protocols are basically the rules which must be followed by the sending device and the receiving device. So this is where now the standards come into the play, because we need to agree on what protocols should do and what each and every protocol should do. So that's why we must have certain standards also. So internet standards. Internet standards, they are developed by IETF. IETF stands for Internet Engineering Task Force. The IETF standard documents are called as request for comment. We call it as the RFC. So the documents, the standard documents of IETF, they are called as RFC. And before going for the RFC, let's talk about Internet Draft. Internet Draft is a specification which act as a working document, but it does not have any official status. Now RFC, these are the IETF standard documents, which is a draft after it is publicated. They define protocols such as TCP, IP, HTTP, SMTP. So they are IETF standard documents which are actually working in place. Last thing is about the internet standards. It's a tested specification that is useful for those who work with the internet. So it's a specification. It's a formalized regulation that must be followed by each and every organization. Alright, so that was regarding the nuts and bolts description. We talked about here that we are going to talk about, we are going to learn about the internet in two ways, nuts and bolts, and second thing is networking infrastructure, which is the services. So we have talked about nuts and bolts description. Now let's talk about services description. So what are the services description? So let's talk about the services description here. We have already discussed until now many of the pieces that make up the internet, which are nuts and bolts. But we can also describe the internet from a quite different angle, or from entirely different angle, such as infrastructure that provides services to the application. So this is what we are going to describe over here in this slide. These applications include, for example, email, web surfing, instant messaging, which is IM, voice over IP, internet radio, video streaming, distributed games, peer-to-peer file sharing, television over the internet, remote login, and much more. These applications are called as distributed applications because they involve multiple end systems that exchange data with each other. Most importantly, internet applications run on the end systems and they do not run in the packet switches. So the applications, they run on the end systems. End systems are, it can be a computer, it can be a laptop, it can be a gaming console, it can be a smartphone or any other devices. These applications, they do not run on the switches or the intermediate devices of the network core. Although packet switches facilitate the exchange of data among end systems, they are not concerned with the application that is a source or sink of data. So what do we mean by over here? That applications, they always run on the end systems or the hosts, which can be your computer, gaming laptop, or whatever. They do not run on the intermediate devices like the switches, like the routers or the hubs or any other devices, because the purpose of the hub and the router is to connect or to provide the communication path between the end devices. Alright, so a service overview, let's just talk about this. So it is an infrastructure that provides services to the application. So we mean infrastructure that provides services to the application. Alright, let's assume over here that you have an idea. You want to make some distributed internet application which may be used by the people or by the people. Now, how are you going to transform your idea into the actual internet application? You want to create an app, for example. So because your app will run on the end systems, you are going to write your app by using some software or by using some language, for example Java, C or Python. Now, because you are developing your app, the internet application, the software pieces running on the different end systems will need to send data to each other. So we get a central issue, one that leads to the alternative way of describing the internet as a platform for application. So how does one application piece running on one system instruct the internet to deliver the data to a software piece running on the another end system? Let's consider an example. You play the multiplayer games on the internet, like on mobile or the gaming console. So when you are playing, those games are written by using some computer science language, for example, maybe Java, maybe C++, Python. So when you are playing, your score is this one, and your score is, for example, X, and the player with which you are playing the game, he has a Y score. So how these scores are communicated to each other? This is done by the internet. So it provides it's an infrastructure that provides services to the application. Next, it provides programming interface to the application. So it basically provides programming interface to the apps and systems. They are attached to the internet. It provides the API, application programming interface, that specifies how a software running on one system asks for the internet infrastructure to deliver some message or data to a specific destination software piece running on the another end system. So how it allows the sending and receiving of data in the app programs to connect to the internet. So it provides service option analogous to the postal service, just like to the postal service. So this is the service view. Now let's talk about the protocols here. So what is a protocol? Basically, protocol, we already understood that, we already learned that it's a rule for communication. So what does network protocol defines? So as I told you that if you are talking to some other person, conversing, we human beings have some human protocols. For example, we first have the greeting, then we start with our conversation, and then we end our conversation by saying goodbye or whatever. Same thing, we have the network protocols also. So what does these protocol defines? These network protocol define the format. What should be the format of the message, order of the message, what should be the format and order of the message exchanged between two or more communicating devices, as well as what actions should be taken when the data is transmitted and received. So what are the actions that need to be taken? So network protocol is similar to a human protocol, except that entities exchanging the messages and the actions that are taken, they are different. So in case of network protocol, the entities that are communicating, they are the hardware devices, for example, computer, laptop, gaming consoles, and actions are the hardware or the software components of some device. It can be some hardware action or it can be some software action. Alright, so moving ahead. Alright, so here we talk about a human protocol and a computer protocol. As I told you, human protocol, we have specific messages to send, specific actions are taken when the messages are received or other events. So for example, when we talk, we have certain protocols. We always greet each other. We say, for example, you are conversing with someone, you say hi and you get the reply hi. Then you reply the message for the time, and the other person does not understand you. Maybe the person does not understand English or something, so he replies too. So basically, what type of actions are taken, this is defined as human protocol. Now network protocol is similar to the human protocol, except that entities exchanging the message and taking the actions are the hardware of the software components of the device. For example, it can be a computer, it can be a cell phone, router, or any other devices. Alright, now this diagram shows about the network protocol. Let's consider a simple, very simple example when you are trying to access the internet or trying to load some web page. So what you do, you first of all type a URL of a web page, for example www.google.com on your web browser. So what happens in this, first your computer will send a connection request message to the web server. So here the TCP request message is sent to the web server, for example google.com, and your computer will wait for a reply. The web server will eventually receive your connection request and it will return a reply message. So it will send some response message. Knowing that it is okay to request web document, your computer then sends the name of the web page, what you want to fetch from the web server in a get message. Again a message is sent and then the file is sent from the server to your system. So what does protocol now defines? We have now talked about human and computer network protocol examples. The exchange of message and the action taken when these messages are sent and received, they are the key defining the elements of a protocol. So protocol always defines format and order of the message exchanged between the communicating devices, as well as what actions should be taken when a message is received or when a message is transmitted. So internet protocols are those rules and regulations that control and manage the process of sending and receiving of data in the internet. Examples of those protocols are TCP, IP, HTTP, and there are many other protocols. Protocols define format, order of messages sent and received among network entities, and actions taken on the message transmission and receipt. So this is the definition of the protocols, network protocols. Alright, so that was about we come to an end of our first topic, which was what is internet. Now we talk about the network edge. In this lecture, I am going to discuss about, I am going to cover topic 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. 1.4 and 1.5 will be in the another lecture. So now we start with 1.2. We will talk about network edge. Let's talk about it. Alright, so what is a network edge, access networks and network core? Okay. So what is a network edge? So in this we are going to talk about the edge of the network, and we will also look at the components which are most familiar. For example, smartphones, computers, cell phones, etc. So we are going to talk about first of all what is a network edge. Network edge are the end systems. So network edge are the applications and the hosts. Hosts are also called as the end systems, we have discussed just now. Hosts can be clients or the server. They are referred to as the end systems. They are referred to as the end systems. We just use a term called as end systems. They are referred to as the end systems because they sit at the edge of the network. So for example, what can be your end systems? Network edge, it can be host, clients and server, like your smartphone, laptop, it can be your car, it can be your any device which is capable of sending and receiving the data. The internet's end system can include desktop computer, Mac, PC, server, mobile computer, smartphones, and many other devices. End systems are also called as host because they run the application program such as web browser program or a web server program, email program, or any other program. Host, end system, they are the interchangeable terms. So hosts are also called as the end systems. Now hosts can further be divided into two categories. It can be either client or the server machine. Client can be your desktop, mobile PC, PDA and so on, whereas server is the more powerful machine that store and distribute the web pages, streams, video, email and so on. So servers are often in the data centers. Next we talk about access networks, physical media, which can be wired, wireless communication link. Okay, before talking about access networks, network edge can be application and host. We talked about host, which are client and server. Now what is about application? Application can be any type of program which is running on client or server. We can have a client program or a server program. A client program is a program running on end system that requests and receive a service from the server program. Web, email, file transfer, remote login, news group, these are the applications that can run on the client system. Since a client program runs on one computer and the server program runs on the another computer, the client server internet applications are, by definition, they are the distributed application. So the client program and the server program, they interact with each other by sending the messages to each other. Now let's talk about access networks, which can be wired and the wireless communication link. So after talking about the end system, let's talk about the physical link that connect an end system. So there can be several types of the access links. You can have a wired link, you can have a wireless link. For example, if you consider in the first picture, the mobile station is connected to the router with the help of the wired link, and all the devices, they are connected to the mobile station with the help of the wireless link. Now if you see over here, in the second picture, the computer is connected to the router with the help of the wired link, whereas laptop is connected to the network with the help of the wireless links. Now all the routers, they are connected to each other with the help of the wired links. Coming to the third picture, if you see over here, the servers are attached to the router with the help of the wired links, whereas laptops are connected with the help of the wireless links, and these are the personal computers, these are connected with the help of the wired links. So it can be either wired or wireless. Lastly, we talk about network core. Network core is nothing but the interconnected routers, which is also called as network of networks. So for example, if you see over here, there are three networks connected to each other. This is the first network, this is the second network, this is the third network. The first network consists of three devices: laptop, mobile phone and the car. The second network consists of two devices. The third network consists of many devices, and all these networks are connected to each other with the help of the interconnected router. So this is the core, this is network core, this is network core. So all these three networks, they are connected to each other with the help of the interconnected routers, and hence it is forming a network of networks. Alright, so more specifically, end systems are hosts which run application programs. Example of the application programs are web, email, and they are at the edge of the network, because if you see, they are at the edge of the network, at the corners of the network. There are two types of hosts, clients and servers. Clients can be desktop, mobile PC, smartphone and so on, whereas server are the powerful machine that store and distribute web pages, stream video, relay email and so on. Access networks, they physically connect the end system to the first router on a path from end system to any other distance end system. So if you see the access networks, so if you see, there are certain kind of link. These are access networks. All these links are called as access networks. These are access networks. So these links are called as the access networks. Now, how to connect an end system to the edge router? So how do we connect the end system to the edge router? There can be many methods to connect, right? So first thing we are going to talk about is residential or the home access network. How can you connect the network in the resident or the home access? It can be connected by DSL, which is the digital subscriber line. It can be connected by the TV cable, FTTH, fiber to the home, which is quite used nowadays. It can be a dial-up connection or it can be a satellite connection. How the institution or the enterprise access networks they are connected? They can be connected with the help of Ethernet or Wi-Fi. Now Ethernet is a wired connection. We are going to make an Ethernet connection in our lab also. Now what is dial-up modem? We are going to talk about all these. Dial-up modem and DSL, we are going to talk about all these things. Alright. So let's talk about dial-up modem over here. This technology or this way of connecting the internet was used in 1990s. Almost all the residential users, they used to access the internet over the analog telephone. What happened in 1990s? During that time, your computer was connected to your home telephone, which has a dial-up modem. Now this home telephone is connected to the telephone network, which is provided by your telephone service provider, central office, and this is the structure of the telephone network. Then telephone network end office is also connected to the internet service provider through the help of the modem, and this modem is connected to the router or to the internet. So it uses the existing telephony infrastructure. Home is connected to the central office. It used to have 56 kilobits per second of direct access to router, and it cannot surf and phone at the same time, because if you cannot use your home phone and internet at the same time, because if you are using the internet you cannot use the phone, so only one of them you can use at a particular time. This was the drawback of the dial-up modem. The dial-up, actually in case of dial-up, you actually need to have a you need to dial your internet service provider's phone number and make a traditional phone call setup with the internet service provider. So that's why it was called as the dial-up connection. So in this case, the analog phone line is made up of twisted copper pair and is the same telephone line which is used to make the ordinary phone call. And the home modem, it converts the digital output from the computer to the analog form and transmits over your phone line, which is used by your phone, and at the other end your telephone service provider is connected to the ISP modem, which converts the analog signal into the digital form over the ISP router. So this is how it used to function. Now next we talk about digital subscriber line. So the most prevalent type of broadband residential access today is the digital subscriber line and the cable. It is used in most of the places nowadays. So what happens in this? So it uses existing telephone line. A residential typically obtains DSL internet access from the same company that provides the wired local telephone access. So when DSL is used, customer is also its ISP. Now each customer's digital subscriber line modem uses the existing telephone line, the telephone line which you have in your homes, twisted copper cable to exchange the data with the digital subscriber line access multiplexer, which we call it as the DSLAM. So existing telephone line, we use the existing telephone line to the central office DSLAM. Data is sent over the DSL phone line, goes to the internet, and voice over the DSL phone line goes to the telephone net. So voice and data are transmitted over different frequencies, and they are transmitted over the different frequencies. So they use transmission rates are also different. Transmission rate for the upstream is less than 2.5 megabits per second, and for the downstream it is less than 24 megabits per second. Next we talk about cable network. Alright, for the cable network, a residence can obtain cable internet access from the same company which provides your cable television. So fiber optic cable connect the cable head to the neighborhood level junctions, from which traditional coaxial cable is then used to reach the individual houses and the apartments. So in this case, frequency division multiplexing technique is used. That means different channels are transmitting in the different frequency bands. So at the cable, the place where your the cable house or the cable service provider has a splitter, and it provides cable head end to the all the junctions from which the coaxial cable can reach to the different houses and the apartments, and each neighborhood junction can support 500 to 5,000 homes. And because fiber and coaxial cables are employed, it is sometimes also referred to as the fiber coaxial cable, which is called as HFC. Cable internet access requires special modems which are called as the cable modems. Alright, so it does not uses your telephone infrastructure, it uses the cable TV infrastructure, and it uses the hybrid fiber coaxial cable, which is asymmetric, and it can transmit downstream data. It has a downstream transmission rate of 30 Mbps and upstream transmission rate of 2 Mbps. And the network of cable fiber attaches to the home to the ISP router. Homes can share the access network, and unlike digital subscriber line, it has which has a dedicated access to the central office. So data TV transmitted, they are at different frequencies over the shared cable distribution network. So this is the cable modem termination system. Alright, now next we talk about fiber to home, which is FTTH, and and the most used technology. Fiber optic cable can offer higher transmission rates than the twisted pair cables. So many countries have laid optical fiber cable from their central office to the homes to provide the internet access to the homes. So optical links from the central office. So if you see, optical links from the central office to the home are used. If you see over here, optical links, it has much higher internet rates. Fiber also carries television and the phone services. Alright, so this is an example of the home access network. So in this case, in this home access network, cable or a DSL modem is used. So it shows a typical home network. Now this home network, if you see, consists of a roaming laptop as well as the wired PC, a base station, the wireless access point. So this is the base station, the wireless access point, which communicates with the wireless PC. It can communicate with the wireless PC also. A cable modem, and providing the broadband access to the internet. So you have a cable modem here which is providing the wireless access to the internet. A router, this is the router. This is the router which connects the base station and the stationary PC with the cable modem. So you have the this is the access point, and here is the router. It interconnects the base station and the stationary PC. So this network allows the people in the house to have the broadband access to the internet, with one member roaming from any place to the another place. Alright, let's talk about the enterprise network or the Ethernet. So Ethernet is typically used in companies. On corporate and university campuses, a local area network is typically used to connect the end systems. There can be many types of LAN technologies. Ethernet is by far the most prevalent LAN technology. Ethernet uses a twisted pair cable, so it uses the twisted pair cable to connect to the Ethernet switch. We will talk about this technology in the further chapter. The speed which can be given by the Ethernet can be 100 Mbps, and servers can have 1 Gbps or even 10 Gbps transmission rate. So it is typically used in companies. So it's a institutional link, ISP to the internet, ISP route, institutional router. Then this is the web servers of the institution. Then this is the router which connect the wired pieces, and then this is the access point, the wireless router with which the laptops can be connected. Alright, now let's talk about wireless LAN and wide area wireless access. So shared wireless access network connects end systems to the router with the help of the base station. The base station is also called as the access point. So for example, the router at your homes is called as the access point. The access point is your wireless router. Wireless LANs, they operate within the building, for example in 100 feet of area. This is 802.11. It's a Wi-Fi, which we often call it as Wi-Fi, and it has 1154/450 Mbps transmission rate. So for example, this is a wireless LAN. We often call it as a Wi-Fi. Wide area wireless access, it is provided by the cellular. This is by which your phones operate. You might have seen these types of towers in your area to which your cellular phones are connected. So this is the cellular operator. It operates in a range of 10 kilometers of area, and the speed is between 1 and 10 Mbps, and they follow the standards such as 3G, 4G, and now 5G has already been launched. So if you see, this is the mobile tower with which laptop can be connected, with which smartphone can be connected, card can be connected, and this is the wireless LAN, which we often call it as a Wi-Fi. Alright, now let's talk about something about physical media, which is the transmission link. Alright, so first is bit. Bit, as you are all aware, bit is what? It can be 1, 0, so it's some sort of data which can propagate between, which can travel between transmitter and the receiver, sender or the receiver. Physical link is a connection point between transmitter and receiver. So for example, I have over here the physical link. The wireless physical link operates over here. Here I have the wired physical link between the router and the wireless access point. So link can be either wireless or wired. So let's talk about physical link, the something that lies between the transmitter and receiver. Now physical link can be either guided or unguided. Guided media is your wired media. So guided is your wired. That means you are using wires to connect the devices to the internet. Unguided media is your wireless media. Right? So signals propagate. In case of guided media, signals propagate with the help of some wire like copper wire, fiber optic cable, coaxial cable. And unguided media, signal propagate freely, for example by using the radio spectrum. Now let's talk about the physical media, which is the guided media. Okay, so let's talk about first of all twisted pair cable. We are going to prepare this type of cable in our lab. This will be covered in our practical part also. You will see this type of cable. Twisted pair cable consists of the two insulated copper wires They can have many categories. Normally we use category 5 and category 6. The categories, they differ in speed. For example, the category 5 cable can have a speed of 100 Mbps to 1 Gbps, whereas category 6, it can have a speed of 10 Gbps. So it is the least expensive and the most commonly used guided transmission medium, and for over 100 of years it has been used by the telephone network. In fact, more than 99% of our wired connection from the telephone handset to the local telephone, they consist of the twisted pair copper wire cable. So there are two types of the twisted pair cables. You can have a UTP and STP, unshielded twisted pair and a shielded twisted pair. These are the two types, and they have the different data rates also. Alright, now coming to the next type of the cable, which is the coaxial cable. Like twisted pair cable, coaxial cable, it consists of the two copper conductors. It has two copper conductors, but the conductors are concentric rather than parallel. So these are concentric inside each other rather than the parallel. So with this construction, special insulation and shielding, coaxial cable have the high bit rates. It's a bidirectional, that means communication can be done in both the direction. It is used for the broadband, that means multiple channels on the cable. So coaxial cable is quite common in the cable television systems. The cable, the wire that you use in your cable television is coaxial cable. So as we know, the cable television systems have recently been coupled with the cable modems to provide internet to the residential users. Cable television and cable internet access, the transmitter shifts the digital signal to a specific frequency band. Alright, now the third cable is, the last cable is the fiber optic cable. It is expensive of all, and it has highest data rate of all and the least error rate. It consists of a glass fiber carrying light pulses, and each pulse is a bit. So this is based on the light technology. The optical fiber is based on the principle of optics, principle of light. So it has a high speed operation, point to point transmission, and the transmission rate is tends to the hundreds Gbps. So it's quite faster cable, very high transmission rate, and it has a low error rate. In this, when we use fiber optic cables, we need not to use many repeaters. Why? Because the signals do not degenerate. They degenerate after traveling to a longer distance, and it is also immune to the electromagnetic noise. So these are the advantages of the fiber optic cable. But the disadvantage is it is quite brittle. It can be broken down easily, and also it is the expensive of all the cables. So these are the disadvantages of the fiber optic cables. Now let's talk about wireless media. The wireless media, which is the radio spectrum. Signals are carried in the electromagnetic spectrum. We do not use any wire. It's a bidirectional. Bidirectional means it can be done in both the directions. But it is affected by the environmental factors, like if there is a rain, if there is a sandstorm, if there can be reflection, obstruction by objects, and there can be the interference. Now, what are the types of the radio link? We can have terrestrial microwave, land, wide area, and the satellite. So terrestrial microwave, it can support up to 45 Mbps of channels. LAN is nothing but Wi-Fi. The speed transmission rate is 54 Mbps. Wide area is your cellular network, the network that you use in your mobile phones. 4G used to have 10 Mbps, but now it's 5G. Satellite, the transmission rate ranges from kbps to 45 Mbps, and there can be a delay of 270 milliseconds. The two types of the satellite are geostationary and low Earth orbiting satellite. You can refer to your page number 21. No, you can refer to this wireless link, satellite radio channels, for more information. Alright, moving ahead. Now we talk about we come to our third and the last topic for this lecture, which is the network core. So here we are going to talk about packet switching, circuit switching, and the network structure. So let's continue with that. We are going to talk about the network core over here. Alright. Okay, so as we have learned in the previous slide that host send our message is broken down into the packets and then those packets are sent. So host sending function, how does the host send the message? It takes your message, it breaks down the message into smaller chunks which are called as packets, and the length of the packet, let's assume it is L or X. Now it transmits the packet into the access network, and the transmission rate of that transmission link, let's assume it is R, because each transmission channel has its own capacity of transmitting, right? So let's assume we have a message, it is broken down into two packets. So L is what? 2 over here. Now let's assume the transmission rate of this link is 5 Mbps, right? 5 Mbps. So now we need to find out time needed to transmit L bit packet into a link. So it will be given by L divided by R, and you will get the answer in seconds. So it will transmit the packet into the access network at the transmission rate, and the link transmission rate, it has capacity, bandwidth, these are the same thing, which we call it as the packet transmission delay, or we need to calculate time needed to transmit the packet into the link. Now let's talk about the core. Network core is nothing, we have learned this, we have gone through this figure before also. Network core is nothing but it's a mesh of the packet switches and the link that interconnect the internet's end system. So core is nothing but the interconnection of the routers and the communication link that connect the end systems or the edge of the internet. There are two fundamental approaches for moving the data through a network, and the two approaches are packet switching and circuit switching. We also call it as packet switched networks, or we also call it as circuit switched network. Now what is packet switching and what is circuit switching? We are going to talk about it. We just learned in the previous slide about the packets. Packets means, for example, you need to send a message. You are sending a message. Now this long message will be broken down into packets. For example, this is a message and this is now broken down into 3 packets or equal size, right? So in packet switching, message is broken down into packets. Now these 3 packets will travel through the routers, through the communication link and the routers, or we call it as the switches. Packets travel through the communication link and the packet switches. So for example, if this system is sending a data to this system, this message is broken down into 3 packets 1, 2 and 3. Now these 3 packets will travel from these routers to reach to this system through links and through routers. Packets are transmitted over each communication link at a rate equal to the full transmission rate of the link. So whatever transmission rate of the link is, packets are transmitted at that speed. So if a source end system or a packet switch is sending a packet of L bits over a link with a transmission rate of R bits, then the time to transmit the packet is L by R seconds. So for example, if the size of each packet is 5 bits and The transmission rate is also 5 bits per second. So 5 divided by 5 bits per second, the time to transmit the packet will be 1 second, right? So how much time will be required to transmit a packet is called as the time to transmit the packet. We need to calculate it. Alright, so it takes L by R seconds to transmit a packet of L bits through a link of transmission rate R bits per second. Alright, now let's understand this example. Now the entire packet must arrive at the router and buffered before it can be transmitted into the next link. So for example, we need to send this packet from computer to this system. So how many links I have? I have one link, I have two links. So I have 2 hops. It has to travel 2 hops, but we are going to talk about only 1 hop. That means from here to here. So the same time will be taken by traveling from router to this destination computer also, if the transmission rate of this link is same as this link. But if the transmission rate of this link is slower than this link, time required will be more. If it is greater than this link, then the time required will be less. So we are talking about 1 hop example. That means sending a packet from the source system to the router. So let's assume that the size of the packet is 7.5 megabits and the transmission rate of this link is 1.5 megabits per second. So how much time is required to transmit this packet from source system to the router? So L by R, 7.5 divided by 1.5. So 7.5 divided by 1.5 is what? 5 seconds. So it will require 5 seconds to transmit from source system to the router. This is 1 hop transmission delay. Now another hop transmission delay, let's assume that the transmission rate of this link is also the same, 1.5. So another 5 seconds are required over here. So total time required, so the total transmission delay will be 10 seconds. That means the time required to transmit a packet of L bits through both these links will be 10 seconds to the destination. This is how we can calculate. End-to-end delay for one packet, it is N into L by R. End-to-end delay for P packets, that means for one packet it is N L by R. N is number of links. So there were 2 links, L divided by R. End-to-end delay for P packets, P into N L by R. Alright, now this R, if it is different for other links, we will have a different number. But if the R is same for all the transmission links, so it will be same. So let me go to this example. So for example, in this I have, for example, let's talk about the transmission delay for one packet. So it is 5 and number of links is 2. So 2 into 5 is 10, right? So this is for one packet. For 3 packets, I have 3 packets to send. So it will be 3 into 2 and 7.5 divided by 1.5. So this was 5, 3 into 2 into 5. So 5 into 2 is 10, 10 into 3 is 30. So it will be 30 seconds. Right, so this is how you can calculate end-to-end delay, assuming 0 propagation delay. So L is the packet length, how many bits, R is the transmission rate, and N is the number of links between source and destination. Alright, so we talk about now the queuing and loss. So for example, when we are sending a message, our message, the transmission rate of this link is 100 Mbps and the transmission rate of this link is 1.5 Mbps. Different links may have the different transmission delays. So if arrival rate to the link exceeds the transmission rate link for a period of time, packets will queue and they wait to be transmitted on the link, and packets will be dropped if the memory buffers fill up. Now what does this mean? Now when packets arrive at this router, the router stores the packet before sending them to the next link so as to get to the destination. Now when number of packets arrive at the router, packets will be queued up. They have to be retained in the memory and they have to wait there before they can be transmitted to the next link. Now this router has certain amount of memory, maybe 100, 1 megabyte or whatever. So if the number of packets arriving are more, then they can be transmitted, and at a certain point of time the memory of the router is over, then the arriving packets will be dropped by the router. That means they will be lost by the router because the memory buffer has already filled up. In that case, the sending system needs to send the packet again. We will talk about these concepts later in the chapters. Alright, so moving ahead. Two network core functions, we have routing and forwarding. So routing, it determines source destination route. That means what type of path should be taken by the source, the packet from the source system to the destination. So for example, from your house you want to reach to the college. So what route you should take to reach to the college, because there can be multiple paths from reaching to the college from your house. So what route should be taken by the packets based on some routing table or the forwarding table. So every router has in its memory has a routing table. Based on the routing table, it forwards the packets to the destination, on the destination. So for example, so something like this table will be made up in the router's memory. So for example, when this packet arrives at this router, the header value is 0111. Now it will look to the packet's header value and then consult the routing table. So packet header value is 0111. That means it should be forwarded on the link number 2. This is the link number 2, because this router is connected to 3 routers. This is router 1, this is router 2, this is router 3. So when a packet comes, to which link it should be forwarded, it is decided based on the routing table, which is constructed in the router's memory by some process, which we will also talk about later in some chapters. Another core function is the forwarding. Forwarding is moving the packets from router's input to the appropriate router output. So moving this packet, when this packet arrives, moving this packet from this input to the proper output, this is called as the forwarding. Whereas routing is determining the path, which path should be selected. Once the path has been selected, for example, this link has been selected, then the packet will be moved from this input to this output number 2. Now let's talk about circuit switching. Circuit switching is a different type of switching. So in case of circuit switching, a dedicated end-to-end connection is established between sender and the receiver. End-to-end resources are allocated. A dedicated connection is established between sender and the receiver, whereas in packet switching, no dedicated connection is established between sender and the receiver. Circuit switching is most commonly implemented in your traditional telephone systems. For example, when you need to talk to a friend using your traditional telephone system, you first of all need to dial the number. When you dial the number and when your friend picks up the phone, you talk to each other. That means you are sending data to each other. In between, while you are talking to your friend, if some other friend tries to call you, you will not be reached up, or she will not be able to make a call to you. So it's a dedicated connection between the sender and the receiver, and in this case, resources allocated to and reserved to resources are allocated and reserved for the sender and the receiver. So if you see in this diagram, Each link has 4 circuits, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. Call gets second circuit. If you see call gets connected to this system, gets connected to this system from the second circuit in the top and to the first circuit in the right link. So if you see, this line has been used up. So all the data from this system to this system will be sent through this path. So a path has been established between the sender and the receiver. So all the data from, let's assume this is computer A, this is computer B, will be sent from this second circuit in the top link to the first circuit in the bottom link over here by using this dedicated path. So dedicated resources, there is no sharing of the resources, and the circuit segment is idle if it is not used by a call. So if you see, there are 4 segments, all these 3 segments are idle and they cannot be used by anyone if the call is not made. This type of network switching technique is commonly used in the traditional telephone networks. Let's talk about differences between circuit switching and packet switching. Circuit switching is connectionless. No dedicated connection has to be established, whereas circuit switching, it is connection oriented. A dedicated connection has to be established between the sender and the receiver. There is sharing of the resources, but whereas in this case the resources are dedicated or reserved to the sender and receiver. Packet switching is more simpler, more efficient, less costly, and there can be packet delay and loss also because no dedicated connection is established between sender and the receiver. Usually circuit switching is used with the continuous data. Protocols are needed for the reliable data transfer in case of the packet switching, and resources are allocated on demand. If it is required, it will be allocated to the sender and the receiver, otherwise resources will not be allocated. Alright, now let's talk about frequency division multiplexing and time division multiplexing. So frequency division multiplexing, for example, a circuit switching can be accomplished by using frequency division multiplexing or time division multiplexing. So let's talk about this. For example, we have 4 users. In case of frequency division multiplexing, they are transmitting at different frequencies. It has a different frequency, it has a different, so they are transmitting in their respective frequency bands. Whereas in case of the time division multiplexing, a dedicated time is allocated to each user. So for example, in this case, time slots are allocated to each user. So for example, first blue will transmit, then green, then yellow, then pink, then again blue, green, yellow and pink, then blue, green, yellow and pink. So this way a round robin technique of transmitting the data is used. So they are transmitting in their frequency bands. Now this frequency band, it is shared by the different users. There can be many users in this frequency band. There can be many users in this frequency band. So all the users that are using this particular frequency use this band, and this is shared among these users. Whereas in this case, the time is multiplexed among the various users. Alright, so internet structure, let's talk about this. End systems are connected to internet with the help of the internet service providers. We already talked about it. It can be residential, company and university ISPs. Access ISPs, they are most interconnected, and the resulting network of networks is quite complex. Now let's talk about the stepwise approach to the current internet. Given millions of access internet service providers, how to connect them together? I have millions of internet service providers across all over the globe. Now how to connect these internet service providers together? So I have the hierarchical tier structure. So how to connect them? Alright. So I have tier 1 ISP, tier 1 ISP and tier 1 ISP. They are connected to each other. These are at the center. So these are at the center. Here we have the hierarchical structure. So tier 1 ISP, they are the original service providers. They interconnect to each other. All the tier 1 ISPs, they interconnect to each other. So example of the tier ISPs are Verizon, Sprint, AT&T, Cable and Wireless. They are actually the service provider which provide the national and the international coverage. So for example, in Saudi Arabia it may be STC which may be providing the international coverage. These all are tier 1 ISPs. They are treated as equals. So for example, Sprint is in USA. all the ISPs, they are connected to each other. Alright, then from tier 2 ISPs, which are the smaller or the regional ISPs. Now tier 1 ISPs, they connect to one or more tier 2 ISPs, they can connect to one or more than tier 1 ISPs and possibly other tier 2 ISPs. So if you see over here, tier 2 ISP, it is connected to this tier 1. This tier 2 is connected to tier 1. So tier 2 may be connected, tier 1 may be connected to one tier 2 or more than two tier 2 ISPs. Now these tier 2 ISPs, they are the regional ISPs. For example, some internet service provider for a region, for example, a dedicated ISP for a eastern region or the northern borders or something like this. Tier 2 internet service provider pays. They need to pay some fee, some amount to the tier 1 ISP for connectivity to the rest of internet. Tier 2 ISP is customer of tier 1 provider. So basically tier 1 ISPs are the internet service provider which have provided the backbone. For example, the one who have laid down the cable under the sea to provide the connectivity among the various countries across the globe. They are called as the tier 1 ISPs. So tier 2 ISPs, they are also paired privately with each other. They can also be connected to each other. So if you see, tier 1 are peers connected to each other. Tier 2 are connected to tier 1. Tier 2, last one is the local service providers. We have the tier 3 service providers and then local service providers. So which are closest to the end systems. These are closest to the customers. So local and tier 3 ISPs are the customers of the higher tier, which is tier 2 ISP, and then connecting to the rest of the internet. So a packet passes through many networks. When a packet is sent to the internet, it passes through many networks. So for example, it will pass from local, then tier 3, then tier 2, then tier 1 of a particular country, then tier 1 of the next country, then tier 2 and local. So this is how the internet is connected to each other, and this is how a packet travels from one internet to the another internet and traversing through the various internet service providers. So that was all about this chapter 1. From 1.4 and 1.5 we are going to cover in the next lecture, and thank you so much.